Here is something that confuses almost every EB5 investor who is evaluating projects right now. Some projects fill up completely, every investor slot taken, before USCIS has even approved the I-956F application. Other projects remain available, open for subscription, months, sometimes years, after their I-956F has been approved. Investors see both scenarios and ask the same question. What does this mean? Which situation is better? And what is each one telling me about the project? Today we break it down, both sides, honestly, the legitimate reasons and the ones that deserve harder questions. I'm Mr. EB5. Welcome to EB5 Gyan. Let's get into it. Part 1. Sold out before I-956F approval. Why does this happen? Let us start with the scenario that looks the most impressive. A project that fills up before USCIS has even approved it. Investors committed their capital and in some cases signed subscription agreements before knowing whether USCIS would accept the project's framework. Why does this happen? Reason 1. RC track record and investor trust. The most legitimate reason. When a regional center has a long history of successful projects, approved petitions, returned capital, clean I-829 approvals, its investor base and distribution network already trusts it. Sophisticated investors and migration agents who have worked with this RC before do not need to wait for USCIS approval to feel confident in the project structure. They have seen this RC deliver before. The track record does the work. For an RC with this kind of history, pre-approval subscription is a signal of earned confidence. Reason 2. Scarcity and allocation structure. Some projects, particularly rural TEA projects, have a deliberately limited EB5 capital allocation. A project raising $20 million in EB5 capital at $800,000 per investor needs only 25 investors. With strong distribution networks across multiple markets, 25 investor commitments can come in within weeks of launch. The project fills before USCIS even begins its review. Not because investors are being reckless, but because genuine demand for a limited allocation moves faster than USCIS processing. Reason 3. Strong project fundamentals known early. In some cases, the project's underlying fundamentals are independently verifiable before USCIS approval. A shovel-ready project with an experienced developer, a confirmed senior lender, a strong market location, and a clear capital structure. All of that is visible to sophisticated investors and advisors who conduct their own due diligence. They are not waiting for USCIS to tell them what they can already see. They are using USCIS approval as one layer of confirmation, not the only layer. Reason 4. Agent and network-driven sales. And now, a reason that deserves more scrutiny. Some projects fill pre-approval primarily because of aggressive distribution networks, agents, and migration consultants who are incentivized to close investors before questions arise. In these cases, the speed of fundraising reflects the strength of the sales network, not necessarily the strength of the project. Investors in these situations may not have conducted independent due diligence. They may have relied on the agent's recommendation without understanding what they were committing to. This is not always the case, but it is a pattern that exists. And when you see a project that sold out pre-approval, it is worth asking, who are the investors? Are they sophisticated? Did they conduct independent due diligence? Or were they referred by a single agent network? The answer changes the meaning of that sold out status significantly. Pros and cons. Investing pre-I-956F approval. Let us look at this from the individual investor's perspective. The pros. First, access to projects that may close before approval. If a project with strong fundamentals and a limited allocation fills pre-approval, waiting for the approval means missing the opportunity entirely. Early commitment can secure your position in a project that will not be available later. Second, potentially stronger project fundamentals. Projects that attract sophisticated pre-approval investors often have stronger underlying credentials, experienced developers, institutional backing, clear capital structures that do not need USCIS approval to be visible and compelling. Third, early priority date and faster filing. Under the RIA, you can file your I-526E just 10 days after the RC files the I-956F application. You do not need to wait for the I-956F to be approved, which means early commitment allows you to prepare your documentation, file your I-526E at the earliest opportunity, and secure the strongest possible priority date. And with concurrent filing, your EAD and advance parole can be approved even before the I-956F decision comes through. The cons. First, USCIS may not approve the project. This is the central risk. If the I-956F is denied, you have committed to a project that cannot accept EB5 investors. Depending on the subscription agreement terms, you may or may not have a clear path to exit. Make sure you understand the refund provisions in the subscription agreement before committing pre-approval. Second, USCIS may issue an RFE on the I-956F. An RFE on the project application adds months to the timeline. While you can still file your I-526E 10 days after the I-956F is filed, an RFE on the project creates uncertainty around the job creation framework your petition is built on. If the I-956F is eventually denied, your petition is impacted. So while filing is possible early, an unresolved RFE is a risk you are carrying into your petition. Third, material change risk. Between the I-956F filing and its approval, the project may change. Scope adjustments, financing changes, construction updates, any material change may require amendments and additional USCIS review. More time, more uncertainty. Fourth, you are committing before USCIS has reviewed the job creation methodology and TEA status. If USCIS finds issues with either, the project's fundamental immigration framework is in question. You have committed capital to a project where the core EB5 eligibility has not yet been confirmed. Part 2 available after I-956F approval. Why does this happen? Now the second scenario. A project with a fully approved I-956F, USCIS has reviewed and accepted the framework, and yet investor slots remain available. Why? Reason 1. Large capital allocation. The most straightforward explanation. A project raising $100 million or $150 million in EB5 capital needs a large number of investors. Even a well-subscribed project at that scale will show ongoing availability for months after approval. Availability here simply reflects the mathematics of fundraising at scale. It is not a signal of anything else. Reason 2. Market reach takes time. EB5 investor distribution is global and fragmented. A project approved in month 1 may not reach certain investor markets, India, Vietnam, South Korea, until month 6 or later. Availability during that period reflects distribution timing, not investor rejection of the project. Reason 3. Investors are taking longer to decide. Post-2022 Act, investors are conducting significantly more due diligence before committing. Attorney reviews, independent financial analysis, source of funds preparation, all of this takes time. A project with strong fundamentals may simply have a pipeline of interested investors who are not yet ready to close. Availability reflects the length of the decision cycle, not the quality of the project. Reason 4. Project has recently opened subscriptions. Some projects launch fundraising at or shortly after I-956F approval. If you're looking at a project that was approved 2 months ago and opened subscriptions immediately, ongoing availability is entirely expected. It would be unusual for a large project to fill within weeks of launching. Reason 5. And the one that deserves scrutiny. In some cases, ongoing availability in an approved project reflects that investors who have reviewed it carefully have found concerns and chosen to look elsewhere. Concerns about the developer, concerns about the capital structure, concerns about the exit strategy, concerns about repayment history. When a project has been openly subscribed for a year or more with significant remaining allocation and the I-956F has long been approved, it is entirely reasonable to ask, have sophisticated investors reviewed this and passed? And if so, why? This is not an accusation. It is a due diligence question. The market for EB5 capital, while not perfectly efficient, does carry information. When a project struggles to attract investors despite holding an approved I-956F, that signal is worth taking seriously. Pros and cons. Investing post-approval with ongoing availability. The pros. First, the immigration framework is confirmed. USCIS has reviewed and approved the project's structure, job creation methodology, and TEA designation. Unlike a pending project, where your I-526E rests on a framework still under USCIS review, an approved I-956F means that foundation is settled. No open questions, no pending RFE risk, no uncertainty hanging over the job creation methodology your petition depends on. For the September 2026 deadline, this is the cleanest filing position. Second, more time for due diligence. Because the project is still available, you are not being rushed into a decision by scarcity. You can take the time to review the developer, the capital structure, the offering documents, and the RC's track record without pressure. Third, you can assess market reception. The fact that the project has been open and available for a period gives you information. You can speak to advisors who have reviewed it. You can ask the RC about the investor profile of those who have already subscribed. You have context that a pre-approval investor simply does not have. Fourth, amendments and RFEs are behind you. Any USCI's requests for evidence issued during the I-956F process have already been resolved. The approval means USCIS was satisfied with the answers. You are not inheriting an unresolved USCIS query. The cons. First, availability may reflect genuine market concern. As discussed, ongoing availability is not always neutral. If sophisticated investors and experienced advisors have reviewed and passed, understanding why they passed is critical before you commit. Second, the project may be later in its development life cycle. A project that approved its I-956F 18 months ago and still has availability is 18 months further into its construction or development timeline. That may be positive, less construction risk remaining. Or it may raise questions about whether the project is progressing as planned. Ask for a current project status update, not the original pitch. Where is the project today? Third, fundraising timeline pressure. If the project has a fundraising deadline, driven by construction funding needs, ongoing availability close to that deadline may create pressure on the RC to close the EB5 tranche at any cost. Understand the fundraising timeline and what happens if the target is not met. What each scenario means for September 2026. Let me bring this back to the deadline that matters right now. September 30th, 2026, the grandfathering deadline. Here is the correct picture under the RIA. You can file your I-526E just 10 days after the RC files the I-956F. You do not need I-956F approval to file your petition. This changes the deadline calculation significantly. Scenario 1. Project sold out pre-approval. By definition, it is not available to you. This scenario is informative but not actionable. Scenario 2. Project with pending I-956F, still taking subscriptions. This is actionable for the September deadline, provided the I-956F was filed at least 10 days before you file your I-526E. You can subscribe, prepare your source of funds, and file your I-526E while the I-956F is still pending. Your petition goes into the queue. Your priority date is established. Your EAD and advance parole can be processed concurrently. The risk you carry is that if the I-956F is ultimately denied, your I-526E is impacted. So the quality of the pending project and the strength of its I-956F application matter enormously in this scenario. For HUA pending projects with complex or unclear I-956F submissions, filing your I-526E against a shaky foundation is a risk to assess carefully with your attorney. Scenario 3. Project with approved I-956F still available. The Immigration Foundation is confirmed. USCIS has reviewed and accepted the framework. Your I-526E rests on solid ground. You can file immediately, with no uncertainty hanging over the project's eligibility. For the September 2026 deadline, this remains the cleanest path. The only question is, why is it still available? Answer that question honestly through independent due diligence, and you have the full picture. Let me bring it all together. Sold out before approval, legitimate reasons, strong RC track record, limited allocation, strong project fundamentals, genuine early demand. Reason to scrutinize: agent-driven sales without independent investor due diligence. Pros: access to strong projects, early filing possible after 10 days of I-956F filing, EAD and AP can be obtained even before I-956F approval, strongest priority date. Cons: I-956F may ultimately be denied. RFE on the project creates uncertainty your petition is built on. Material change risk. Available after approval. Legitimate reasons. Large allocation. Global distribution timing. Longer investor decision cycles. Recently opened subscriptions. Reason to scrutinize: sophisticated investors may have reviewed and passed. Pros: immigration framework fully confirmed, no open RFE risk on project, time for thorough due diligence, cleanest filing foundation. Cons: availability may reflect genuine market concern, project stage questions, fundraising timeline pressure. Neither scenario is automatically good, neither is automatically bad. What matters is understanding the reason behind what you are seeing and asking the right questions to find out. Subscription speed is not a proxy for project quality, and availability is not a proxy for project weakness. Both are signals. Your due diligence is what turns a signal into a conclusion. Drop your questions in the comments. I read every single one. If this episode gave you a clearer framework for evaluating what you are seeing in the market right now, share it. That's EB5 Gyan. Simply clear every time. I'm Mr. EB5. Read the signal, ask the question, make the right move. See you in the next one.